Hey everybody, this is Joe Pace with Icewater Yoga, and today we're making hard yoga poses easy. Today's pose is one-legged crow or flying crow pose. This is a very tricky pose, takes a lot of experience and a lot of awareness. Especially, you need to nail crow first. Once you have crow, you can start moving into this, and we'll talk about that. But the reason I like teaching this pose, especially to athletes, is it requires so much strength, coordination, body control, and range of motion that it kind of combines a lot of the elements of yoga in one pose. And so oftentimes people think yoga for athletes is this thing where you should really just play with kid gloves and not really try challenging poses. But in my opinion, if you have enough experience as an athlete in yoga where you've sort of earned the ability to try poses like this, in my opinion, the path there has made you a better athlete, and working towards this pose is going to make you an even better athlete. So we're going to start with 5 principles and start and end with 5 principles, working towards the full pose. And the first is crow pose. I'm just gonna review all of the principles of crow really quickly, but you really wanna have a solid, stable crow, really be able to hold it for about 30 seconds to a minute or so before moving into the flying crow variation. The pose is relatively simple, but there's some really key alignment principles to think about before you even try it. To start, hands stay underneath the shoulders, never wider and never closer to one another. You want the hands directly underneath the shoulders. Index fingers are parallel to one another, which allows the wrists to be parallel with the front of the mat, protecting the wrist. Spread your fingers wide so you have a very wide foundation, and you're gripping the mat with your fingertips. You walk your feet in, come onto the balls of your feet, never allowing your elbows to splay out. You keep your elbows hugging in and in line with your wrists. My knees come as high up the triceps as I can. I rock my weight forward and my feet lift off the floor. I'm holding this with my core. I'm zipping my knees in. I'm zipping my elbows in. I'm gripping the mat with my fingers. This is a 30-second hold or a minute hold before you move into step 2. So when we think about what's happening in this pose, ultimately stepping one leg back in space while only one knee supports our body weight in a crow shape. So what I want to emphasize here with step 2 is this feeling of the weight of the body shifting back in space while keeping the arms forward in space. So we're going to work crow jump backs for this next step, working towards as slow of a crow jump back as you can possibly do. So with crow jump backs, we want to jump back to a chaturanga shape, which means that if my shoulders are already forward and my elbows are already over my wrists in crow pose, those same alignment principles are what I want in chaturanga. Then the only thing that's changing is what's going on in my legs. What we want to do is set up a nice crow, and then from here, nothing is changing in the upper body, except I'm drawing my chest forward as my legs draw back. That's all the transition is. Ultimately, you can work towards slowing that process down, keep your chest coming forward, and the landing to be as light as possible. So the slower you can make that transition, the more you're starting to understand your body weight in space and your body weight of the lower body and the upper body relative to each other. So step 3, this is where things get a little bit tough. We're gonna work crow pose, except we're gonna take one leg out of the pose but not extend it back. So by extending one leg back is really doing the full pose, and it takes our center of gravity and makes it a little bit wider and uneven. By keeping one leg in the center, we keep that center of gravity sort of in our control, but we want to start feeling what it's like to have our weight balancing on one knee. Hands exactly as they are for a regular crow, coming into the pose and exploring the idea of taking my left knee and then dropping it into the midline, taking it back, right knee to the midline, taking it back. So you can go back and forth with that, feeling what it's like to hold your body weight on one knee. So I'll show you that from the side. I'm gonna remove my left leg so you can see what it looks like. So I'm gonna take crow pose, and then you'll notice my left knee leaves my left tricep. Hold here, ideally for a good 5 breaths. Feel what that's like. It's hard. Let's do the 4th step here, which is working really closely towards the first pose, but we're gonna use the floor for support. This one is working towards one-legged crow, except we're gonna take the body weight forward, and then I'm going to step my left foot back, trying to hover it, ultimately landing the foot. Then I'm trying to come back into crow pose,
and then I work the other side. Chest needs to stay forward. Elbows need to stay over wrists. That's pretty tough. If you can start to feel what it's like to keep the chest drawing forward, elbows hugging in, and doing those leg variations, you're really starting to develop the strength and the coordination you need for the full pose, which is what's next. So step 5, full pose. Everything is the same as crow pose, except one leg extends up and you're pointing your toes in the same direction. I'm gonna do it on my left side so you can see what the leg is doing. Everything else is, again, the same as crow. I rock my weight forward. My knees are as high up the triceps as I can get them. And then when I feel comfortable and confident here, hands are steady. I hug my core in. I extend one leg back. I'm balancing my weight on just my right knee. I come back in control. That's the key. You never want to be rushing in this pose because ultimately that's what's going to cause you to fall on your face. Take a step back, have the floor there in case you need to step down, find that center point, point the toes, enjoy the pose. So there's 5 steps. You have those 5 little progressions to work through. Really take your time with them. This pose will come. It does take a lot of strength, a lot of body awareness, coordination, and flexibility to get in the pose. If you get there, you've achieved a lot. And if you haven't gotten there yet, congratulations as well. You have so much stuff to experience. It should be really fun. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you again soon.